today as National Apple and Pear Day, is the Minister also aware that the growers have organised protests against the government's draft import risk assessment, which would allow apples to be imported into Australia from New Zealand and expose the Australian industry to the threat of fire blight? Will the Minister now admit that under his stewardship there has been a loss of confidence among growers in the government's import risk assessment process, and will the Minister now follow Labor's lead and restore the integrity of the import risk assessment process by committing to a process that is based on science and science alone?
Member for Fisher. I deliberately didn't raise this matter in the presence of the New Zealand Speaker for reasons that parliamentarians will understand. But if any parliamentarian refers to House of Reps practice, the guide for the parliament, of course, on page 159, they will find reference to food and refreshments being brought into the chamber and the Speaker's reaction. I am not standing here being pedantic about this so-called protest. I am standing here because when first this was mooted, the staff of this chamber specifically asked the member for Franklin not to proceed with the matter, and in defiance of the chair, he did so. The member for Franklin will apologise to the chair. The member for Prospect is warned. The member for Franklin.
Mr. Speaker,
Member for Franklin.
Mr. Speaker, as today is National Apple and Pear
Member for
Day,
Franklin.
and as I proudly represent one of the 5 seats in the Apple aisle, I symbolically placed a pink lady on the desk of each of my colleagues prior to question time.
Good on you.
You, Mr. Speaker, had these apples returned to my office, and I was told that you had asked them to be removed. I brought in one apple and placed it on my desk, and I thought this was appropriate on this National Apple and Pear Day. And I honestly believe that I have nothing to apologise for.
The member for Franklin had specific instructions from my office. He will apologise or I will deal with him. The member for Franklin had specific instructions for which he also had individual responsibility. Member for Franklin.
Mr. Speaker, the apples were returned to my office. I had no instruction. The attendant presented me with a half case of apples, and I was told that you had asked them to be removed. I had no other further instruction. And as I said, I brought this apple in individually and placed it on my desk, and I don't think I have anything to apologise for.
The Honourable, I'll recognise the Leader of the Opposition when his own members exercise the courtesy of allowing to be heard. The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I just appeal to you to show some leniency in this matter, given that the apples are not being used as food, they're not being eaten in the chamber. The member comes from the apple aisle, as we know it so proudly. I don't feel that the House is being brought into disrepute, that its reputation will be damaged in any way, and I just ask you to take those thoughts into account as you deal with the matter.
The member for McKellar will resume her seat. Let me indicate to the Leader of the Opposition I understand the spirit of his intervention, but let me also point out to him that I've already exercised a great deal of leniency in my dealings with the member for Franklin. I take his word that there was no specific instruction that meant that the other apples came into the chamber, but equally, in defiance of what I specifically instructed, he chose to bring an apple into the chamber, and I have asked him, in a lenient act on the part of the chair, to apologise. His failure to do so will leave me with no choice. The member for Franklin. The member for Franklin.
Mr Speaker, I have nothing further to add.
Then I name the member for Franklin. Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, I move that the member be suspended from the service of the House.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Is a division required? Ring the bells.